of the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District is now called to order. We have no consent agenda, and so we're going to go right into old business. And this is regarding the Mason County proposed levy shift and the effects to the Shelton Metropolitan Park District. Okay, Dave?
What's happening with this is the county has asked for our help in resolving what they described as a one-time problem. And I would suggest that it's a good thing that we want to help each other, including with helping them and vice versa. And I'm going to lay out a way that can be done. But ultimately, a policy choice has to be made. It's really that may depend on issues that are beyond what I can address. So given that, what I'm trying to do is find a way for you to do this in a way that does not harm the city or the Metropolitan Park District. And my interest is in managing the technical parts of this. The levy shift is proposed. The city or the Metropolitan Parks District must agree that with the levy shift, or it can't go forward, at least based on all the information that I have to this point. I want to talk about a term that's used, and I just need to say it in order, so I don't forget about it. There's a thing called prorationing, and what happens is when you have a set of taxing districts and the accumulated proposed collections for those taxing districts exceed a percentage, and it's 5.9% of the assessed value in the taxing district. The state law calls adjustments that need to be made. They call it prorationing. Prorationing is actually, I think, a misnomer. I think it was a term made up by people in the legislature, not because it's actually the way it's done. It's not prorationing that you and I think of, where there's a prorated assessment of the impact of the various taxing districts. Instead, what happens is that the senior taxing districts are able to collect their statutory limit, and then the most junior taxing districts are the ones that need to not pay. Then they're obliged to lose that. That's not happening in this case, but this term comes up all the time, and I wanted you to understand what prorationing means. Prorationing means you take the funding that ordinarily would go to the junior taxing district and it goes to the senior taxing districts, conceivably us, conceivably the city as one of the senior taxing districts. Because we are in a situation, I'll explain how a levy shift works, and let me do that and I'll come back to this. Where the way the county is doing it, there are two major sources of funding for Mason County. One of them is their general levy, and that's just to pay for the general government, predominantly public safety services, what they charge for, criminal justice system. The other portion is the road levy, and that's to pay for a county road. And really what they're doing makes a lot of sense. They're saying, hey, we think we need less money in roads, and we need more money in the general or public safety services. And so what they'll do is say, okay, everybody that's paying into both taxing districts, we'll just pull the same amount of money out of one, put it into the other, where there's no difference at all in your amount of taxes that you'll pay in the county. However, if you're in the city, then it's a little bit more complicated, because city citizens pay the general taxes, but they don't pay the road taxes. So there's only an increase for city residents. Now, what's happened is that because of the recession, our property values have dropped in the city. And right now, we're taxing the maximum that we can. In other words, we're in a proration situation, where the junior taxing districts are relinquishing levy capacity to the county, the county, the city, all the other taxing districts. And so what happens is, and so the county says, we're gonna add more to the taxes associated with the city, which means that, again, some taxing district, typically it would be the junior taxing district, but it doesn't have to be, needs to relinquish taxing authority to the county. The city tax value is only about 7% of the county-wide tax value. So we're talking pretty small dollars relative to what's going on in the county. The county is trying to shift approximately $1.8 million from one fund to the other. And the impact on the Metropolitan Park District is $150,000. Of course, to the Metropolitan Park District, $150,000 is everything. I mean, it's half of their total, about half of what they can currently collect right now. And it's even more impact than that when you consider that they've had their tax collections reduced even further by the levy shift. When they started, ideally we would be, except for the assessed value problem, we would be collecting a little over $400,000. In fact, that's what they did in the first years of the UPD. And so that makes a big impact. To have a levy shift would have a big impact, except for the state law says that they can't do that without permission from the Metropolitan Park District or from the impacted taxing district. So what's before you, and I have it here, and please dispose of everything you've had up until now, because this is the latest version and the one that I'm proposing for you now. Let me just get it through. I didn't expect quite so many people here today, so I don't have enough for everyone. And if you'll talk to me after the meeting, I'll get more.
So this is different than what we have
Oh,
in
yeah.
the packet.
Oh, yeah. No one in Mason County has done this before. And so we're kind of learning as we go. But I think this is and so we've been working on this, I would say almost straight through from last week, or I have been at any rate, trying to get it right. Essentially it says that the Mason County will send the Metropolitan Parks District, or see to it that the Metropolitan Park District gets $150,000 of lost money, or approximately that much money. And it'll be determined once the levy rates are set at the county as to how much the amount is. There was a second impact, and that had to do with loss of future taxing capability. In the year that the levy shift is applied, the year that you actually put the levy shift into effect, which would be 2016 in this case. If you're in a levy shift, whatever assessed value is added during that year, it creates an impact that you can never get back. Ordinarily, you get 1% of all new. You get to add 1% from the prior year's tax collections plus new construction. Well, new construction is rather complex, but essentially, if you don't collect all that you're capable of, then your 1%, then all the new growth gets kind of prorated according to what you're able to get relative to your total amount. And we're already being impacted because of our assessed value is so low, we're already being impacted by, whenever we get new construction, it already impacts our future taxing capacity because of the proration. And the transfer to the county of $150,000 in capacity will exacerbate that. So what we did was we looked at, okay, what do we add during 2015? And we have assessments on that. It's about $280,000. The impact to the Metropolitan Park District, if we add that same value in 2016, the impact would be about $75 a year in taxing capacity. And I'm thinking, well, what's that worth? how do we make, because I'm not trying to do anything other than make sure that we're made whole by that. So I thought, well, if it's 1% yield on an investment, which is actually more generous than what we are able to get right now off of our investment accounts, and less generous than what you can typically get in other times, at least during my lifetime. So, okay, say it's 1%, then you need $7,500 in the bank in order to be able to make $75 a year off of it. So I said, okay, whatever. So I've put in here as an amount to recover the $150,000 that we get to make up for the lost levy next year in 2016, plus another $7,500, which is capitalized loss that we will otherwise get. So that's what's in the contract. There was some concern, and I'm about dissuaded from it at this point, that when we lower but we have a strategy, and that is every year we always ask for the maximum that we could possibly get given the statutory limits, irrespective of prorationing or anything else. We do that for the NPD, we do it for the general fund, and the assessor has asked us to not make that request, just make a request for the amount that's pursuant to the contract. And that was unnerving for me because it's not what we typically do, but Kathy has showed me the provision of state law that says that we can still go, we don't relinquish any taxing authority from that, so I don't think that's an issue, but in case anybody raises it, that should not be an issue based on what I read in state law. So at any rate, let me see if I've forgotten anything here. The county has included the levy shift in their budget. It is the county's intention, stated intention, to do this one time. If I were in their shoes, I wouldn't necessarily want to constrain myself to one-time ability to move money back and forth between these funds. Something always comes up. But as the way state law is, it looks like as long as prorationing is in place, we have the wherewithal to say no. And I would suggest that based on what we're seeing from the SPI construction, which will start next year, and especially if Shelton Hills starts, that we should probably just say no straight away, that we don't want to do a levy shift and just not do it within the city because of the loss of the ability to add this new construction. And it would, instead of being 7,500, it would probably get into a lot more money in order to be able to capitalize that loss of taxing authority in the future. I should also say that it's not a cost that we'll see straight away. Really, that is lost ability to tax once we've got assessed values up to the point where we can collect the maximum anyway. So it isn't a loss that we're going to see in the next year or two. It's a loss that we will see in maybe 4 or 5 years or even more, depending on how quickly the local economy recovers and property values return to something like normal. At any rate, I think I got everything covered. Okay, I'll answer questions. I'll try to, if you have any, keeping in mind that no one around here is an expert in this, but I think we've worked it well enough to get it right.
Okay, I have one question for you. It sounded like initially you were saying that you felt comfortable for a 1-year shift, but you would not feel comfortable if it were an ongoing request from the county.
I'm comfortable that if we have an impact, we're being compensated for it. So I'm comfortable with that. But I'm absolutely not comfortable that it should be done in 2000, it should be done for the 2017 year.
So what I'm going to do now is, if the other commissioners have questions of Dave, ask those questions, and then there will be a time for public comment. And I noticed Commissioner Jeffries is here. Did you want to speak?
I would like to when there's an opportunity.
Okay, I will call you first for public comment then. Okay, any questions, guys?
Yeah, on the loss of new construction that will be compensated for, is that a permanent, ongoing thing? If we accept this, 2018, 2020, we've lost that, whatever's new construction in 2016, we've lost.
Yeah.
Forever.
Forever.
And so that $7,500, is that going to be compensated every year?
Just once. The idea is it's a one-time loss of taxing authority, and I said, okay, what's that worth? What is, so
Yeah, but
I,
it's going to compound itself over the years.
in what way?
Well, if we can't recover it, if we're anything new construction, say there's $500,000, then we can never, ever get property tax out of it.
Yeah, if it was 280,000, you'd lose about half of the value as and it's more complicated than that, but basically, if it's, you lose the ability to add essentially $140,000 in new assessed value.
Right, and that's going to compound each year as supposedly property taxes will increase, property value increases, so will taxes. So we've essentially lost that ability to compound that. That the 7,500 doesn't really meet that burden of being made whole again.
I would argue that it does.
Why?
Because I'm, so I've lost the ability to make $75 a year. How much money does it take for me to earn, to where the money can earn $75 a year if I put it into an interest-bearing account and leave it there forever? So so if it's 1% yield, 1% of 7,500 is $75.
So in 10 years, you'll essentially, it'll break even.
No, in 10 years you get back 10%.
Which would be $7,500.
No, it'd be 750 times, it'd be 10 times 75. You'd only make $75 a year off of it. 7,500, 1% per year is $75.
So I'm still not getting why we aren't compensated going forward.
Complicated issue.
I'm wondering,
if
maybe you can, but I don't know that you can bind a future county commissions to
Well,
send us
we're being
$75.
bound.
We are, yeah, because we've lost forever the ability to get that.
Frank had his hand up. He seems to have an answer for this. Shall we allow Frank to?
If I can add
I'm
to,
sorry, you're sharing me, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, excuse me,
Yep.
Frank, yes, I
I'm sorry.
did not recognize you. Yes, please answer the question.
thank you very much. I think the piece that was missing in the conversation was the loss to the Metropolitan Park District might be $75 for the year. And what Dave is attempting to do is to say, well, if we were to recover, because you want to, the $75 year after year after year after year, what would you need to have in the bank at a 1% yield in order to get that $75 year after year after year for perpetuity, which is $7,500. So that's why his recommendation is, in addition to the buy down, that there be a $7,500 add to that, and then that would compensate the city for that lost $75 year after year after year.
Okay. I buy that.
I think I want to withhold my comments till after I hear Commissioner Jeffrey speak. That's where I'm
That's fine, that's fine. And if anyone else from the public wants to speak, there is a sign-in sheet. And Commissioner Jeffries.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for hearing us out today. As was explained by your administrator, this is up to you folks. Normally it wouldn't be. It is for the simple reason that you are at the top of your levy rate. So Mason County, unfortunately, a previous commission had done some financial moves that were needed to be rectified. And let me just share this. I want you to understand why we're wanting to do this and why we consider this one time. There are $1.8 million, including $532,000 and $348,000 of improper use of road funds for the current expense funds. Those need, and that was the previous commission, unfortunately, those funds need to be paid back to the road fund. In addition, when we do diversion of road fund monies for our traffic policing, we get an over diversion, and so those monies need to be paid back to the road fund. So the monies that we're talking about shifting from the road fund to current expense are in order for us to pay back the road fund. The reason we want to take it from the road fund in the first place is because this is monies that they would not have received in the first place. They're not anticipated. But over on the current expense side, with this amount of money, we will be able to buy 12 new police cars, be able to continue to do add a court clerk for increased pressures on our court systems. We have a lot of needed items on our current expense side, as opposed to what would $1.8 million pay for on the roadside, maybe a half a mile of increased maintenance. The need on the current expense side is a lot higher, and we have this opportunity, or we have this necessity to pay back monies to a road fund that doesn't quite need it as much as we could sure use it on the current expense side. Now, we do have in our budget this year about $3 million in one-time funds, or one-time expenditures, and so it is a higher budget as normal, but we do not want to take monies in our, what's called our ending fund balance, and pay these monies over to the road fund where it's not necessarily needed. So this is what we would like to do in order to make whole our current expense fund, to pay off these one-time sins of the past, so to speak, and not have an impact on our criminal justice systems, etc. When we looked at this opportunity, we wanted to make sure that we were not hurting the city. And that was why we even budgeted what you would lose, or what type of taxing capacity you would have, approximately $158,000 in your Metropolitan Park District tax, as well as any future revenues lost on new construction. This is very complicated. I know it's hard to get your arms around. And I thank the administrator, Kathy Barley, and folks from our staff for spending all the time that they have done to try to make sure we are not hurting anybody. I can't speak to the one-time only, you know. My term in office, it is a one-time only, and should we ask to do this again, it would always be under the agreement with the city to pay you back and make you whole. But I just wanted to also share the current law does protect you as well. In the manual put out by the Department of Revenue about how to do a levy shift and how it's authorized and what are the impacts, it says road levy shifts are decided on an annual basis, continuing with the earn. In the following year after the levy shift, the levy limit is calculated for both the county current expense fund and the county road fund using the highest lawful levy for each district, as though the road levy shift had not occurred. In other words, the original levy amounts prior to the shift are used in determining the highest lawful levy for the district. It is true that what will be lost is any taxing authority on any new construction that would come onto the rolls in 2017. The amount to be added is calculated using the actual rate from the previous year. So what are your impacts of new construction in 2017? I don't know. We have tried to determine.
2016.
2016, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're freaking me out here.
I'll tell you how confusing it is. Okay. So we did calculate that much and assumed that it was about $75, $7,500 would pay you out. Now, I think that there's a philosophical fear around going ahead and agreeing to this, and that's that the county would keep coming back to you. This is a one-time need of ours because, like I said, our road fund does not need this money as much as our current expense fund needs it. And I'm not, well, I am asking you to please consider this. We have considered as much as we can how it would not hurt the city, and we will always come back if we find an unfound hurt to the city and try to make that whole. It is not our intention to do this, just our intention to make our current expense fund whole. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'd also like to invite you to speak with our deputy assessor, who has heard a kind of a misunderstanding as well that she'd like to correct too. Are there any questions that you have?
I just have a comment, Commissioner Jeffries, thinking about ongoing, if this were to come up again. Like Dave said, this is pretty tempting, you know, for the county to use this, and I could see a great use for it in public safety. And I would get a little political here and highly encourage the county to pursue a public safety sales tax, because that's where I see the next hit coming from, is your lack of funding for public safety. And as Shelton begins to grow, hopefully in the next few years, I think you'll look at us a little more, you know, envious for tax-wise. And so I would just encourage you guys to consider that in the future, to pass a public safety sales tax.
But I do want to also let you know that these 1.8 million are one-time expenses.
No, I realize that, you know, I'm just getting a
And
little,
not ongoing. But
throwing a political plug in there for
I
you.
can appreciate
You know,
that.
it's an election year for you guys, so.
Not me. Thank goodness. Are there any other questions or concerns that I could address in the commission?
I'm still a little confused about this with the new development revenue. Is it from 2016 or is it from 2017?
2015 new construction, I'm sorry. I missed those.
2015.
16.
But it's
It's based on
construction
this
that was
year.
done in 2015.
The analysis, if I may speak, the analysis in this is done on 2015 to be adjusted for the values in 2016.
Right.
So it's new construction that came on the rolls in 2015.
And that's the limit of the impact.
Yes.
Let's clarify that
No,
one
it's
time, and
actually-
you help me,
They're just
Frank.
guessing for next year.
Let me try to get this. What will happen is the assessor will assess properties during the first portion of 2016. It's a magic cutoff date. I think it's in May. Is that what it is, in May?
It's mid-year.
Okay, mid-year, they'll say, okay, this is what you got. And so that'll mean whatever's happened in the prior year up until that point. And if there's a new construction project that's partially done, they'll estimate what the value is for the partial construction. And then they'll say, that's the new growth that's being added in 2016 for the 15-16 year. And that's the one that will impact the levy that we'll be working with in 2016. Did I get that right?
Yes.
You and I talked about it earlier, and we were
Yes.
struggling a little with it, so, okay, yeah.
And we're using the $75 impact as an estimate of that value, which will be calculated mid-year.
So it'll be recalculated
Yes.
to make sure that we had it right.
Okay,
So it could go up.
it could go.
It could go up. Could go down.
And just to be clear, so this is the taxing amount for the Metropolitan Parks District only. This is the amount that it affects the Metropolitan Parks District.
That, I understand, is
Yeah.
what the agreement's going to be around. Yeah. I would put up the professionals here if you want them to speak to the details. Just wanted you to understand why we wanted it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Thank you, Commissioner Jeffries. You can stay tuned. Toby?
Sign in.
There should be a sign-in sheet right there.
Gotta learn to write faster. I am Toby Kevin, 709 Terrace View Drive, Shelton. I have a question. I hope I understood what was said. But $75 represents current estimate of a loss of taxes based on an assessed value. Understand that that can change because the actual assessment hasn't been done. But then the assumption is this $75 is going to be put in the bank, and very good explanation of how slowly it will amortize. What happens if the assessed value of the property, say, doubles 5 years from then? We're still only getting that 1%. Oh, we're assuming that the interest rates will go up at the same rate that the assessed value goes up. Is my understanding of the situation correct? That's the first part of the question.
I think I can answer his question. At that point, assuming that the assessed values bounce up, then first of all, it won't have any difference, it won't have any impact at all on the amount that we can collect, because by statute, we can only collect the property tax 1% more in the next year than we did the prior year. So that's regardless of what happens with assessed value. The other piece of that is what happens to the prorationing and all that stuff. It all goes away because the assessed value will increase and will give us the room to be able to tax and still stay underneath the cap. So the amount that we can tax is capped by the amount of assessed value in the district has been dropping. So basically, if it all increased double, it would look more like normal at that point.
But we're still only getting that $75 a year based on this locked-in decision from now.
And that's the maximum we could ever get, assuming that all our assumptions work out. So we're not going to get any more than that unless we add more assessed value in 2016. Because you're capped by the 1% increase per year, and it's a plus new construction, and that only gets added the one time. Regardless of what the value is in the future, it only gets added one time for the year that it's added.
Thank you. I'm slightly less confused than I was before.
As I've said before, it's a hairball.
It is.
Okay, and I just saw a new signature go on the paper. Could you?
Amber Cervantes. So I'm the chief deputy for the Manistee County Assessor's Office. So I had very much opportunity to speak with you about some of the details. I know we've kind of been going around between us, our office and Frank and you guys. And there's a lot of discussion about the loss of potential revenue from new construction. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to explain this in a way that won't muddle it more in everybody's minds. But when our office calculates the highest lawful levy for a taxing district, we're required by law to start with that district's highest lawful levy since, I believe it's like 1986 or something is when they started tracking it. So for the Metropolitan Park District, that year is 2012. So I just want to keep that in perspective, that there would be the potential if a district currently was building 1% on top of, and plus new construction and state assessed utilities each year, And then that would make the next year their new highest lawful levy. That's not the case with the park district. They're still stuck back in 2012, using 2012 because they've been capped at their statutory maximum. So they're not actually capturing those new construction rates as it currently is. So it's, I know it sounds kind of convoluted, but you're not actually building the 1% on the new construction as it is now. Because next year, we're going to start with the 2012 amount again and start over. Until at some point when assessed property values skyrocket and that number with the statutory maximum gets larger.
What we are concerned about, as I understand it, is bank capacity. So as I said before, yes, you cannot get it now because assessed values are down. When they go back up, then we will have the capacity to go back and restore ourselves to what we were doing before. Kathy, you got anything to add to that?
Not really. I believe what Amber is referring to is when we first set the levy rates for the parks, we didn't request the full 75 cents. We requested only 55 cents. So we were below our statutory capacity in the very beginning. And so when you add on your new construction, which we do every year, and that's why our amount increases that we request, but we never hit the 75,000 until the assessed values dropped. Then the 75 cents kicked in. Now, that's really confusing. When the assessed valuation dropped and the 75 cents capped us, then that was one thing, but the pro-rationing, we continued to request the larger amount, the higher amount, in case we never knew from moment to moment when the assessed value would all of a sudden jump up, and we wanted to be able to grab everything that the pro-rationing had reduced us by. So it's a mixed bag.
So you can, what I understand is that you can't get it now, but you could get it later, and that's what we're talking about, losing the capacity to get, is when it all recovers. And that, you and I had that conversation.
From the $5.90
Right.
pro-ration.
So maybe we can look at the actual numbers later because I'm still seeing it from a different light. So if we just maybe set numbers with that. So that's just all I had. I just wanted to make sure that.
If we made a wrong assumption, I will recommend that we unwind the portion that's wrong. Honestly, nobody's trying to do anything but make sure everybody is whole here.
Yes.
At least that's what my goal is.
Okay, well, is there any further comment from the public? No? Okay, do my fellow commissioners have any more questions or comments?
I could comment. I could say that we are walking on eggshells with the budget with the city of Shelton at the moment. And that every penny every meeting we're talking about what we can cut or afford or have or raise or whatever. And that it's kind of like the timing on this one. It couldn't hit the city of Shelton a request to tweak our money. It couldn't hit at a probably more cautious time. And I do know that the county commission had a divided vote on this. That there were 2 commissioners voted yes, 1 commissioner voted no. And I do know that those things happen. And that I'm getting a better grasp of it every time I kind of hear it. And in a normal situation, it probably would make a lot more sense for me to want to do this. It's like my heart goes out to the county. I want to make sure the county can get, what they need to get. But unfortunately, where there's kind of some confusion, I have to lean on the side of the fact that we are borrowing $300,000 from our reserves to make our city just maintain for this year. And that when we're in an atmosphere like that, unfortunately, I probably have to lean towards not going along with this proposal. And sometimes you make your best assumption, you know, and maybe it turns out wrong, but at this moment, we are in a precarious situation with the finances of the city of Shelton, and we have no guarantees on 2016, and I just do not want to risk anything at this time, so I would probably not support this.
This will not affect the general fund, only the Parks District. So the $300,000 that you're stating has nothing to do with this.
No, I was merely talking about
And
the
the
kid.
finances
yeah,
of the general fund is a little bit different than the finances of the Parks District, so I don't know that you're, it's like apples and oranges there, you're using analogy of, the general fund is not going to be affected by this.
I didn't say it was.
Well, that's kind of what your
Then you
analogy.
misread what I wanted to say. I said
Okay.
that we are in a very precarious situation. The financial condition of the city is in a
Absolutely.
very tense moment at
But
the
this won't
moment.
affect the city. It'll affect the Parks District.
The city is part of the parks in the fact that we are a family unit. That's merely what I'm saying. So, but, yeah.
Commissioner Olson, will you please finish? Were you finished with your comments?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
So do we need to make a decision on this? Do we make a recommendation? I'm not really clear on what the expectation is from this board.
When I first started in this, I thought that this needed to be done by the end of the year. I'm still inclined to think that it should be done by the end of the year, although if there's something that needs to be corrected, I understand that it may be able to be corrected after the first of the year, based on what I'm hearing from the county. So, but I still think it'd be a good idea. I mean, we're trying to do the budget for 2016. This has an impact on the budget in the Metro Parks District, so it should be done during the normal process. It makes me nervous if we don't have that done.
So you're saying today we need to?
This week.
Okay.
And then whatever we approve, it's different. We keep in mind, we've been through several revisions since the county originally sent us a contract. The city attorney rewrote it, and then we've been working it for the past day and a half or so since the city attorney was finished with that version. So we've been through several versions, and it's going to have to go back to the county for their blessing as well.
Well, I will say that I feel a lot more comfortable every time we narrow down the details. And I can appreciate the fact that it's kind of a gamble. We don't know for sure. The county doesn't know for sure. I can see the benefit to the county, definitely. We all live in the county, even though we live in the city. So I do feel more comfortable with it. I appreciate the fact that the intention is for this to be 1 year only, and for the city to be made whole and not feel any negative effects of this. I would like to say with a very strong caveat that that I would only want this to be done one time if we should agree that this needs to be the direction that we go, that I would not want in any way for this to become the norm. And that's my opinion. And I don't know what...
I would concur quite heavily with that. I think over the last 4 years that I've been sitting here, there's been a huge level of cooperation between the city and the county that I feel has never been there that strongly before. And I think that I'm satisfied with the answers the questions I've asked have been provided with, that I feel comfortable with this. And I would support this agreement, interlocal agreement for the levy shift with the county.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy, yes.
I understand that the levy certification that needs to be recertified needs to be completed by next week, into 14. And I would guess.
You mean into 15?
I mean, I'm going backwards into 16 rather than 15. that we have the opportunity to send it in next week, but I'm sure that we would want this agreement done before we did that. But the assessor's office needs it, before like Thursday of next week. So, which means it would need to go back to the county for them to approve it also. And then we would need another parks meetings, SMPD meeting, sometime next week to approve the recertification.
Okay.
So you need a motion to just approve this agreement then?
Yes.
And then there'd be a recertification after the
Well,
contracts.
Would we need, if this agreement,
See, folks, the reason I'm concerned is that this is not clear enough for me to vote on it. And, I just have to tell you, one time, anybody can want one time and one time only, all they want, but as soon as they're voted out of office, that all goes away. And the city is not in a gambling game. We gambled a lot over the years, and unfortunately, that's why I would not support this. But if my fellow commissioners want to make that decision today, that's the way it goes. Let your votes be what your votes are, but if you're confused, along with everybody else about stuff, I mean...
I just wanted to be sure that I was on the same page here, that we would need to agree to it today, the agreement, to go back to the county commissioners for their approval before we do the recertification of the levy next week or later this week.
Either way.
Yeah. So we need another parks board meeting too. I just want to be sure I was on the same page you were on.
So you're discussing the process of how we actually would go through with approving this and making it.
Yeah, I was afraid if you didn't approve it this week, you would need to approve it again, and we have a limited amount of time to do that in.
Yeah, we're gonna need to recertify the levy.
Okay.
And that would be, and basically the contract says, I think, that we're gonna recertify the levy.
But we have to do it, next week. We have to, it's critical that we recertify the levy next week at another parks board meeting.
Yeah, it's not like you got another bite at the apple here. When you sign the contract, and the city's made a commitment to doing this, and so it's unless you want to renege on the contract, that you need to recertify the levy. So you got to decide whether you want to get this done this week or wait till next.
Does it require?
How interesting.
Yeah, does it need to go back to the county for them to approve it also?
Oh, yeah.
The contract.
Okay, so I'm not sure when their next meeting is.
It'll be next Tuesday.
Tuesday, so we would need to do something before next Tuesday so it can go back to their meeting.
I wouldn't suggest that we do it until the county's approved approved the contract on their end.
Okay, so then it would come back next week here.
That wouldn't give you enough time to certify.
And then we can recertify it the same day we approve it if we have all the numbers in line. I'm just seeing a big timing issue coming on here.
And you'd have to have two special meetings.
Yes.
One for the Metropolitan Parks District and
Perhaps.
one for the city.
Well,
Or no.
No, they're both
all
MPD.
metros.
Well, we can approve this pending any changes that the county might make, right?
Sure.
And that way, if everything is okay with the county's end of it, then we've already approved the contract. It's one less step in the,
If I have the recertification language and everything up to par, could we bring it back at the same meeting that you approved the agreement and then approve the certification at the same meeting?
I think I heard Mike say that they could approve the agreement today pending that the language would remain the same and authorize the commissioners to sign that
Okay.
without, they could take action today.
I would make a motion that we approve the interlocal levy agreement with Mason County pending any potential changes they want to make. As written in front of us today.
Okay,
Well, you're in charge of the meeting.
okay, I will, do you want to second that?
For the sake of discussion, I would second it,
Okay.
okay? Sake of discussion.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, are we ready to vote?
Sure.
Okay. So all those in favor of, oh gosh, of accepting the MOU as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
That's why she lost, and that's what she's gonna lose next time.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, we have no new business, no administration report. One more opportunity for general public comment. The next meeting will be next week.
Wednesday, so that you can get the certification approved after the agreement.
Wednesday or Thursday would
Thursday is
be. The county will have their meeting on
the
Tuesday.
31st.
Then it needs to get over to me, following the information.
First.
Oh, no, next Thursday. I don't even know. It's the 8th?
Okay. Somebody look at the
He's right, it's Thursday.
Okay. And Wednesday. Okay, so the next Metropolitan Parks District meeting will be a special meeting, and it will be next Wednesday or Thursday to be announced. And this meeting is adjourned.
Now, see, the commission, the city park district will get back.